if like, and welcome to something new on the channel. We've got a new trailer announcement from Urban Games for Transport Fever 3. I had a feeling something like this was in the works, and I'm really excited. The trailer looks awesome. We'll go through, I'll let you guys see the trailer first, and then we'll go through the trailer bit by bit and sort of pick stuff around. It's not in-game footage, it's sort of like a vertical slice, but it's very cool. There's a lot here. Even in this picture there's a lot going on, and we'll go through some of the other pictures and art that we found on the transportfever3.com website. So we'll go through the trailer first. I won't talk through it, I'll let you guys see it, and then we'll do a breakdown of the trailer piece by piece.
Transport is at the heart of human civilization. From the early days of transportation to the latest wonders of technology. Starting out is simple. But there is no limit to complexity. No matter where, no matter the challenge, efficiency brings success, and progress never ends. Are you ready to connect the world? Transport Fever 3.
Okay, so that was the trailer. It looks awesome. We'll go through it bit by bit. This is the first scene here, so we can just sort of play through. We've got some stuff going on there. We've got, I can't remember what this is or this is, but these were in previous Transport Fever 2. We've got the Metro liner down here. It only makes sense that they would use a lot of the vehicles in Transport Fever 1, Transport Fever 2, port them over, because those models were really good. They'll probably do the same as Transport Fever 2, where you'll get the same roster of vehicles as Transport Fever 1. In Transport Fever 3, you'll have the same roster of vehicles as Transport Fever 2, and then they'll just add some new ones. Obviously, it's difficult to get licensing and stuff, and it's expensive to get the licenses for licenses for a lot of the vehicles and stuff, and they'll often just make it slightly different from the realistic version in a way, and they just sort of name it something just off of what the real name of the vehicle is. But yeah, we've got buses here. They did add the American buses in Transport Fever 2. That looks like one here. We've got the bendy bus, the semi. There's something creeping in here. Looks like an F7 or F9. I can't remember the model. That American train. But we've got overpasses here. That looks kind of interesting. We've also got this road with the divider here, the crash bar there. That's kind of neat. Elevated platforms through the city. Now, this is not in-game footage, so some of this stuff might not be in the game at all. This is more like a cinematic. There is one scene later on in the trailer that'll show you that looks kind of in-gamey. We've got another elevated section here, and this, as we all know, everyone will recognize this sort of station and these sort of buildings that are added on. This looks like the terminus station. This looks like the original terminus station, but it looks like this one does a bit of freight possibly, and I think this is passenger station and cargo, so it's like mixed passenger and freight. That's kind of cool. We had that in Transport Fever 2, right? I've played over like 2,500 hours of Transport Fever 2, I should know. But yeah, so that looks kind of neat. Obviously, we're probably, yeah, this looks pretty cool. Now, we've always had in-game problems with traffic in Transport Fever 1, Transport Fever 2, where it just jams up and then nothing moves for ages. I would imagine making something like this is quite complex, and unless you get the sort of tools like you have in City Skylines, where you can appoint certain lanes for certain traffic to go to, this free-flowing traffic is probably not what you're gonna get. But I don't know. It depends what they've got in the game. But this looks very, very cool and intricate, and it'll be amazing. You can probably build this in Transport Fever 2 now. I don't think I've made anything, an overpass system, quite as complicated as this. I've never had the need to. But it looks really cool. Some of the buildings here as well look like newer buildings, if these are in fact. Some of them look kind of the same as Transport Fever 2, but that's fine. They're obviously going to recycle and port over the buildings. It saves a lot of time. It's a lot of work, and the buildings in Transport Fever 2, etc. were just fine. So yeah, we've got... See, there's like car parks there, but I don't... Yeah, it's kind of neat. And then we've got the train passing under. So yeah, it looks like you can... Or it looks like they're showing you that you can build some pretty intricate stuff. Right, on to the next one. Coming in 2026. Okay, so we've got a while to wait. We've got a train. Looks like a Mikado with the Pennsylvania wagon. And this is interesting. So we've got biplane. Now, we did have fairly early plane transport in Transport Fever 2. I can't remember which date it unlocked. 1940? Or 19... I think it was 1940. It was like around about 1940 time your air would unlock. This looks before that. This looks sort of way earlier, judging by this model. I'm not sure this aircraft... It's obviously... Well, it's not a biplane. It's just a very, very, very simple plane. We've got the Mikado here. It looks like a Mikado. We've got the Pennsylvania wagons, and then we've got the classic American sort of Death Valley, or I can't remember, well, sort of canyons and rock formations that you get in the sort of areas like Nevada, New Mexico, places like that. So that's kind of cool. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of biomes there are. We'll go over this in detail later. I've got a few things that I would like to mention about the game, what I'd like to see, etc., and things that we're sort of hoping for. But yeah, that's very cool, and if you get planes even earlier, that'd be neat. It's a DC-10. That's kind of neat. Now, this bridge with a train and the runways look... Ooh, something else I wanted to point out. Now, this will come up later. This plane is landing. It's not completely night, but it's almost night. And there's another scene like this that I want to go through later. This brings me so much joy. Not the DC-10, if it is a DC-10. We'll go through it later. But yeah, this bridge with the train and the traffic on it, that'd be very cool. It's obviously a sort of new style bridge as well. You see the ships here. Again, this looks very familiar. This is like the sort of passenger ferry ship that you got in the previous games. The Tora here. This will probably be the name of the ship, the Tora, because they're often... The name of the ship is actually on the bow. You can rename it, but it's normally when you buy a ship, if it was the Axalp, it would say Axalp on it, for example. But again, these are sort of low-sided sort of river ships and barges that you can see here. There aren't really large ocean-faring vessels. No like cruise ships or huge oil tankers. There is a picture later that we'll go through that's got something kind of like an oil tanker, but yeah, we're going to get the ships, but they're probably going to be these sort of river-style boats. This one looks different, judging by the back. Or is that the front? I can't tell. Maybe that was the front. Right, so, there we go. We've got a semi rolling through a farm area. Now, this scene right here Now this is interesting because this, if you're looking for something that's probably close to looking like what it's going to look like in game, this is probably going to be your closest bet. So maybe a farm buildings might actually look like this. It looks like there's a couple of farms in here. This might not just be one farm. We've got the fields. If the fields actually do look like this, oh my god, that'd be great. Now, one thing as well, I don't know if you can see it, but if you look at this road, the texture here is different. And it looks like there are puddles or surface water on the road here, which is kind of interesting. It might mean that we might get weather, but I haven't seen any weather in the trailer. But we'll talk about that in the section we're going to talk about later. So yeah, this is probably the closest image that you're going to get of what potentially in-game might look like. Possibly. But I did say at the start that it was not in-game footage, so maybe all of it, or probably all of it is. This, I would say, is the closest thing you're probably going to see. See, it looks like water at the side there. And then we've got this as well. This looks very complex. It'd be cool if you could actually make stuff like this. But again, we'll have to wait and see. That'd be really neat. You could probably make something like this in Transport Fever 2. Same with the farm area, but you would need to download a lot of mods and assets in order to build it up like this. But yeah, we've got these sort of smaller river tankers. Because you can tell because they're very low-sided, because obviously the river, they're just travelling up and down the river. If you were to take this out in the open ocean, it'd be very bad for you. So yeah, looks like an oil refinery here. Looks very cool. Maybe this is a possibly you build one module and then you can add other modules, but the fact that they've got it out into the ocean here is kind of neat. I'm hoping that's a thing that you could actually do. You could do this in Transport Fever 2, but you had to use mods to bring the sort of land out, and then you could place like concrete blocks and stuff to get your harbour effect. And then you could you could place ships there. Some of the, if you were good enough, you could get them to function and actually deliver stuff. There was lots of ways to get around it, but this would be cool if this is just a natural thing in game. See these tankers here, this looks like a loading area, and these look like tankers that are actually in the game. We know these ones are. These are the Chinese ones, these are the American ones, and is that a different type? So it looks like you're going to get the option as well to mix traffic as well. Like you could have a map, sort of all the region vehicles, the Russian, Chinese, American, European. You could have all those vehicles running together, which is fine. Let's keep going. Yeah, it looks really cool. This looks neat as well. Again, this one looks a bit bigger, but yeah, see, very low-sided ships. This looks really nice with the sunset there in the background, and I'm going to mention that later. We've got the, is this the FD9 or FD7? I can't remember. It used to get a lot of these. You still got a lot of variants in them. This is very nice. Again, the mist effect probably not going to be in game, but this looks really nice. The textures and stuff, I would imagine the textures probably won't be as good. The problem is you see trailers like this and you think, oh my god, that's awesome. But because this isn't in-game footage, the textures in that might be a little flat and not as sort of popping as they are here. But we'll just have to wait and see again. Aha! This one. So back in Transport Fever 2, there were a couple mod creators. Huge Dragon was one of them. And there was another guy that made oil rigs, offshore oil platforms. And Huge Dragon made stuff with helicopters, which you will see right there. It looks like an S92. But yeah, so it was always kind of weird to me that oil platforms, oil rigs, weren't implemented in Transport Fever 1 or 2. They had to be modded in. Anyone who's played old school Transport Tycoon, which was one of my favourite games ever, knows that you could get oil platforms and you had to use helicopters to take people out to the platforms in order for them to work. Just like the way they do in real life. And then ships would come. You see the buoys here at the bottom? The buoys mean that ships can rock up here and they can load or unload cargo. If you see a buoy like that, they can also be used as waypoints as well. But the buoys often create like a sort of invisible dockyard where ships can sort of come in and dock and then take on or offload cargo. There's no ship here, but there is one in a picture on the website that we'll look at later. But we've got the helicopters. Huge Dragon, the content creator and mod creator, he did a lot of stuff with helicopters. It was fun, it was good, it worked. There was even one, I think, if you got the hospital mod, it would land on top of a hospital and you could use the hospital as like a bus station, heliport, etc, etc. It was very cool. So I don't know if they've actually got in touch with him and asked him about his code for his mod and maybe just implemented it and refined it. That'd be really cool. And I sincerely hope there are helicopters. I think I'm almost 100% sure the oil platform thing is going to be in the game, because there's other pictures of it later. But yeah, if you get the helicopters to take people out or even take cargo and drop off cargo, whatever, that would be kind of neat. So yeah, I am really excited about this and the helicopter stuff. Okay, yeah, so everyone that's played Transport Fever 2 and has made any kind of large city will be familiar with this. Most of the car assets and stuff look the same. We've got like the old school Volvo and sort of the newer stuff. That's fine. If you're not happy with the vanilla choice of cars, people will always mod in extra cars and you can use real world cars and populate your cities to your heart's content with all the weird and wonderful wacky vehicles you want. We've got the tram down here. This looks like the Citaro bus, which was in the last one. We've got an tanker truck there. But this looks really cool with the people and stuff. But again, this is not in-game footage. I keep forgetting that. Oh, and they've added tram tracks through there. That's pretty neat. Got the Metro liner here. So that's kind of neat actually. To have the roads split at either side. If that's a thing that can actually happen. You've got your bus lanes here. Bus lanes were very handy in previous games, but yeah, the Metro liner has been in the game since Transport Fever 1. Alright, and now the main thing here. This looks awesome. It's obviously not in-game footage, as I said, but it looks really neat. If you were to find certain content creators online, they probably have made and gone through and done all the detailing. I have done a lot of detailing, but I stopped the Transport Fever 2 series because there was too many issues with bugs and stuff, and the game was always breaking. It was a nightmare because there was too many mods, and it was taking up too much of my time as well, just trying to build the map. Building high detailed maps and stuff is something you need a lot of time for. Now there's a helicopter here. I don't know what that is, but it looks interesting. Now one of the things that's cool is the airport. This airport runway is long. One of the things that was always very weird in Transport Fever 1 and 2 is that airport runways were very short. You've got a plane landing here. That's kind of neat. But this looks a lot longer. Again, this just might have been added in for the trailer. It might just be exactly the same as it is in Transport Fever 2. We don't know. But that's all good. And then I think this is the scene. So the plane lands and then the sun goes down and pause. Come back a touch. Now this is something I've been oh god damn it. Right, you push play and then push pause. Alright. The sun has gone down and it's now nighttime. Now this is something I've always wanted in Transport Fever games. A day-night cycle and weather. Now, we haven't seen any evidence of weather apart from that random bit where it looked like there was surface water on the scene where the truck was driving past the farm. That might have just been added in there to make it look nicer. I don't think that's really any evidence of there's going to be rain or surface water is going to be there. And that's really the only image I've seen to suggest that there might be weather. But it looks like we're going to get a day-night cycle. I remember making a video and there was a mod where you could turn Transport Fever 2 and you could make it night. And the only way you could see anything is because the moon in the skybox was so bright, so everything was sort of dark, but the moon would shine a light and everything, so you could still see everything, so that it wasn't completely pitch black. There was a weird thing though where AI placed buildings, the lights on them would come on, and the street lights would come on. But any asset building or modded building you placed, there would be no light effect. So you could see in-game buildings, town buildings like this, that were original in your game with the night box on, and they would be lit up, and so would the street lights and stuff. But any modded or asset building that you placed wouldn't light up, which sort of leads us, or led me to believe, that there were enough breadcrumbs and evidence that possibly Transport Fever 2 had a day-night cycle at some point, and they just never added it. Because why give the road vehicles lights and then lights on the road and have the city buildings light up if you weren't going to do that? But it looks like they're going to do it here. I remember somebody left a comment on that video saying that having a day-night cycle in Transport Fever 2 is pointless because it's so dark and you can't build. I don't know what kind of games they've been playing, or that person was playing, but this is true in some games, but it's not in others. Anno 1800, when it first came out, when the time shifted to night, it was really dark. If you didn't have a lot of buildings on your island or wherever you were building, you couldn't really see anything, you couldn't really build anything because it was too dark. They then fixed that and made the lighting a lot better, and it was great. It was fantastic. Playing at night, seeing your city light up at night and all the things going on, it's fantastic. Same with Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. The base night for that is very dark, and you genuinely cannot see anything or build anything because it's so dark. And I think they've changed that now since the game is fully released. Before, you had to go in a file and you had to sort of change the gamma so that it was a bit lighter at night and you could still see. If you built a big enough city and there were a lot of trains and vehicles and stuff moving around and everything was lit up at night, it looked fantastic. And if it looks like this, if there is a day-night cycle in it and it looks like this, it's going to look really good. I think things like day-night cycles and weather are fantastic in city builders because they make the game world feel alive. One of the problems I've always had with definitely Transport Tycoon and Transport Builder sort of games is if there's no day-night cycle and you don't have many options to change the scenery around where you're playing at, it can get very generic and very boring very quickly. Transport Fever 1, when you just had trains travelling across the map and it was an endless sea of green and blue sky with a hill in the background and some trees, it looked really boring. And once you'd done 150 odd episodes, each one lasting 30 minutes to an hour, you sort of struggle to find the will to play because you know that when you go to record, you're just going to be looking at the same scenery and same stuff over and over again. I had this with Railway Empire 2. Everything got to a point where everything just sort of always looked the same and nothing looked sort of different. And you could make cool routes going through mountains and that, but 90% of your trains were running on sort of flat areas where it was just sort of green grass and there wasn't much in between. Transport Fever 2 was kind of like that once you got used to the new biomes, and it just seemed like they'd added a crap ton more trees to make it feel alive. But with the amount of mods and detailing and assets and shaders and stuff, texture packs you can use, you can really make a world feel alive. And day-night cycle would help that. Weather would help as well, if there is weather. And it'd be cool if the weather had some sort of effect. Like if in winter there was snow on the roads or on the rails, it would make vehicles move slower. I don't think there's going to be weather in the game. But we shall have to wait and see. So yeah, all this looks really cool. Now I'll go over some of the stuff. There you go, we've got this as well. So it's coming to Xbox Series X and S. Oh, god damn it. Whenever I see this, it makes me cringe. I've seen many videos on this, and a lot of my friends and people I know that in the game industry always cringe because when you're trying to develop software for multiple different platforms, these will sort of roughly be the same, and the PC one will sort of be the same. But when they have to sort of downgrade it for something like the Xbox Series X, it's apparently it can be a lot of hassle for video game developers. But yeah, so Steam Urban Games, and it's coming in. Yeah, so there is the website, transportfever3.com. We are going to go and check this out now because there's some cool artwork and stuff that they've got up on there, and it'll shed a little more light on the game. But yeah, check it out. We'll do this, and then we're going to go through some of the things that I want to see and things I'd like to see in day one, or things that they could possibly add once the game is out. Obviously, we don't know what's all going to be in it to start with. This is just a cinematic announcement trailer. So all the things that I've said here, take with a grain of salt, because some of the stuff in this cinematic trailer might not be in the game at all, but we'll just have to wait and see. So we'll head over to the website now. Okay, so here we are on the website. The website's currently experiencing issues due to high traffic. Yeah, I bet it is. So in this first picture alone, you can see the American trucks. You've got the TGV there. You've got a Bell helicopter. I think that's a DC-10. And you've also got a Sky Crane over here as well, which is kind of neat. I can't really see what's going on with the ships because this bus is in the way. But yeah, it looks very cool. We've got the trailer, the cinematic trailer. Again, we've got in this artwork here. This looks really cool. Again, this probably not real, or it might be. It kind of looks like a screenshot taken from in-game, which would be really neat if it was. But we've got the Bell helicopter here again. I can't really see where it's heading. We've got some trains down here, trams even. That's kind of neat. And then we've got the oil rig. Now there's a picture of a Chinook. There is a Chinook in this photo. There's also a seagull, so and the lighthouse is pretty neat as well. But here's the little oil tanker thing. It's just a little transfer tanker. And like I said before, these buoys that are beside the oil rig often mean that a ship can dock there to load and unload goods. So that's going to be kind of neat. If the Chinook is in the game, that's going to be kind of cool. And then we've got a Mikado here with grass and flowers that look very, very pretty. You could get grass and flowers like this in Transport Fever 2. You could mod them in. They look pretty decent. Is this made in Unreal? Which engine was this made on? I haven't seen any details. Oh, in fact, it was maybe in the... It was maybe at the end. I maybe never noticed it. So if we go to news, there's a very interesting picture here. Again, this looks really cool, but the chance that it's going to look like this in game with the small sort of ships down the side is probably not going to be accurate. Although, the amount of ships here is like the game is just sort of spammed down assets. So it might be. But it looks very pretty with the trees around here. This is probably like London, or supposed to be something like London. Maybe just because it's got the... But there's the church here as well. And then you can see these sort of standard in-game vanilla buildings that we've had in Transport Fever 1 and 2. So they're kind of neat. And I think the last one, I think there's only like one more picture, and it's like a picture of this farm, which is kind of neat. But I recognize this vehicle, and then you see the other vehicles driving around, the cows and stuff. Again, this is probably just artwork, not grabbed from any cinematic trailer or screenshot. But it's very cool. Very cool indeed. So if it even looks half as good as this, I'll be happy. Or if it looks half as good as the photos we got in the first one, go back please. You can wishlist it here. Bigger, deeper, and more dynamic than ever. I'm really hoping for the deeper part. Okay, so we'll go over now a couple of things I would like to see from day one. And I'll just sort of let the trailer play on a loop in the background. Okay, so we're just going to leave the trailer running in the background in a sort of loop. And we're going to go through some of the things that I would like to see sort of on launch, whether it comes to pass or not. But one of the first points is optimization. Optimization has to be good or at least decent upon launch. Now, Urban Games, Transport Fever are not the only games that have been victims of not great optimization. The problem with tycoon games and city building games is there's a lot going on in the background, not just simply the stuff you're looking at on the screen. I remember the age-old Transport Fever Reddit battles of this was graphics card or GPU limited or CPU limited. Graphics card never really been an issue for me. I am fortunate enough, or I have managed to save enough money away that I've always sort of got the best sort of gear, so I'm not too worried about it. I can play Transport Fever 2 right now with 1,000 mods on, with 1 million large cities on the maps, and it will run just fine even at 4K. But obviously the game has finished its life cycle, and they have optimized it greatly since day one, because it was a different story on day one. But optimization has to be good. It's obviously difficult in this day and age. No one PC is the same. Every PC is sort of different, especially with CPUs and GPUs, depending how you fared in the Silicon Lottery. I once had a GTX 1080 Ti. It was an MSI card that was a freak of nature card, and it could do stuff that the exact same card couldn't do. I love that card. I've actually still got it in one of my rigs, and it's one of the rigs I use just for internet browsing and watching stuff on the PC. It doesn't get used for gaming or video editing or anything at all now. it was great. But yeah, early game in Transport Fever has always been sort of good. As you sort of progress and cities get bigger, it would sort of tank, frame rates would get hit. Your CPU is trying to live the lives of each of these NPCs you see on the screen. All the people, all the vehicles, all this is running in the background, trying to compute where they want to go, etc, etc, etc. So it's very, very strainful on the sort of CPU. Again, people always used to say it was a GPU issue. It never was for me. It was always CPU limitations. The thing would be running at 100% on a map that was sort of like half built, and then the frame rate would just start to tank, and late game became a sort of slideshow that was really annoying, and you sort of had to wait for an optimization patch to come out. Moving from the GX to the Vulkan graphics, that was really good back in the day. I remember it, and that made significant differences. So I'm hoping that this runs well or well-ish to begin with, because that can sort of make or break a game. Urban Games have always been really good at listening to feedback from players, and they've always done sort of well with their optimization as their game develops. So that's good. I'm hoping that it's going to be good. We'll just have to wait and see. I did notice that they are doing the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S. Now, I actually know a couple of people that have worked on video games before, and the Xbox Series X and PS5, the hardware for those consoles are not identical, but they're in the same ballpark, so it's kind of easy for them to adapt or sort of build the game for that. But a couple of them said that when you make games for the Xbox, if you make a game for the Series X, you have to be able to put it onto the Series S as well. This one right here. And apparently that can be a bit of an issue because it obviously is not as powerful as the other three things that it's going to be running with. So yeah, I don't know how that is going to fare. I know people that have got both Xbox S and X, and in some titles are like, there's no difference. In other titles, it's like it's night and day difference in performance and graphics fidelity. So we'll have to see how that goes. I hope trying to port for both consoles or trying to develop it for both consoles doesn't sort of delay it, because I know games that have been delayed because of that Xbox X, Xbox S fiasco. But it's only fair that everyone should get it, so that's kind of cool that they're doing that as well. I've heard that the PS and Xbox versions of Transport Fever 2 are pretty good. Now you can get mods and stuff on console, which was never a thing before, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, optimization needs to be good. Right, so on to point number 2, difficulty. Transport Fever 1 and 2 was never really difficult or challenging at all. If you came from Transport Tycoon, if you played that growing up or played it at all, when Transport Fever 1 came around, Transport Fever 2, you sort of knew what you were doing straight off the bat. And even though it's difficult to make money, it is not difficult at all. There is obviously the difficulty settings, where it just sort of gives you less money to begin with. Obviously, depending on the type of map you want to play, there's going to be terrain constraints, etc., etc. But yeah, if you can find two industries that sort of work off together near a town, and you throw a couple of vehicles on it, you're going to start making money. A couple of passenger routes between big towns that are near each other. It was never really difficult. I remember seeing some people uploaded on Reddit, there was like a way you could set Transport Fever 2 to be like a sort of brutal difficulty, and I tried it, and even then, as long as you're moving slowly and sort of penny pinching and building the cheapest roads and railways, it was never really difficult. It just took you longer to make money. It's not like the game would defeat you. So yeah, I kind of like to see like a realistic mode. One of the things that's always kind of weird and it's kind of always annoyed me about Transport Fever is the way that money works. You build a railway line and it's like, this is going to cost you 750,000 quid. It's because it's got 2 bridges in it and it's got a tunnel in it, and that's perfectly understandable. It would probably way more than that to build in real life. And then you set your train up, it runs back and forth, and it takes 3 people from point A to point B, 5 miles down the road, and the train makes 190,000 quid. It's like, are you trying to tell me that each one of those 3 people paid something like 50,000 quid for a train ticket to go in one direction? The ticket prices and things like that have never made, or how money is calculated, never really made sense to me. I remember reading a Reddit thing and this guy explained it, and it's like, yeah, but it's just not very realistic. He made a point that if it was realistic and your passengers were only paying like 30 quid for a ticket or 15 quid or whatever to get to where you probably wouldn't make your money back. You would just lose so much. Most companies today don't have to build the infrastructure, the roads and rails. They just need the trains and the people operate and maintain them. If they had to build everything from scratch, it would be a very, very, very long time before they actually made profit off a line, off a route. And in some cases, they might not make profit at all. But that'd be kind of cool if there was a more realistic mode that sort of did that, and there were sort of events. Like, there are no... Well, this is actually in another thing, so we'll move on to that now. And that's like sort of realism. Back in Transport Fever, the first one, when your vehicles aged, they would get wear and tear and they would become slower. And in order to keep your lines profitable, you had to sort of replace them, which was fine. If a vehicle was aging, it would slow down a line and make the line less efficient. In Transport Fever 2, they added the visual aid where your trains and trucks and buses, your planes, your ships would start to get old, they would start to get dirty and grimy, and they would rust, and it would change the texture of the paint so it didn't look shiny and new all the time. And that was kind of cool. And it was an indicator that if you saw a vehicle that looked like crap, you probably needed replacing. But the problem was, they added the auto replace, so you could say when a vehicle gets to about 65% wear and tear, just auto replace it. So you never really actually saw that unless you were actually looking for it. And if you set all your lines up to auto replace and you had the money to do that, then it wasn't really an issue. And the thing is, when vehicles got old in Transport Fever 2, it didn't really do anything at all. It just... The vehicle just looked like crap. It didn't really slow down or was less efficient on a line. In Transport Tycoon, vehicles, trucks and trains used to break down. And if a truck broke down on the road, all your other trucks behind that truck would be stuck until it got sort of temporarily repaired and you sent it to a depot for maintenance. Same with trains. They also did the same. Planes and helicopters, as we know, would literally drop out of the sky, and then you'd have an issue where passengers didn't want to fly on your airline, on your planes, because you were deemed as unsafe. So I know we're not going to get anything like that, but I'd like the punishment for having older vehicles to actually be a sort of punishment, and I'll throw it in with the sort of the realism. That would be cool. Maybe you could set it in the difficulty. If newer players just want a more casual experience, or more hardcore players where you want things to be more realistic, kind of like Soviet Republic Workers and Resources. If you play that game on the realistic mode, it is nails, it is tough, it is very difficult, and you have to be very careful of every single building you place and plan your infrastructure out accordingly. Anything you forget to add, a power substation, a water supply, sewage, will come up to bite you in the ass later. But then you can play it in a sort of easier mode where you get more money and construction materials are not as expensive. There isn't so much of a punishment for citizens being unhappy or unhealthy, deaths, escapes, etc. And I'd like to see something like this here where if you're not maintaining and keeping an eye on stuff, it's going to punish you for it. Because in the previous ones, it didn't really punish you at all, or it was so lackluster. It was like you didn't care if a vehicle was like 1 million years old and it was probably going to die, because it never did, and it just kept doing its thing and making money. So yeah, I'd like to see something along the lines of that. The same with the industries. I don't know why, but back in the day when I saw that Transport Fever 2 was coming out, I was like, oh my god, this looks awesome. One of the things I was really hoping for was they were going to add new industries to the game. And then I found out that they were actually not reducing the industries that were already there, but the amount of goods that your cities would require, they took it down to 2. I did hear that was an optimization thing. Trying to get all 6 goods in a city meant that players would have so many chains and vehicles that the game just wasn't optimized for it. And I think that was a sort of optimization saving feature. But then very quickly somebody had modded in the ability to transport or select cities and tell them exactly how many goods types you wanted, and you could have all 6 again. But no sort of new industries or anything were added, and I'd like to see some new industries here as well, again in a more realistic fashion. You see the helicopter there on the screen, it's flying out to the oil rig. The oil rig is not going to work unless people are there. And that's the thing I'd like to see here. I'd like to see people have to be transported out to industries in order to get them to work. You need a workforce. Again, that could be under a more realistic thing on a harder setting. I don't know how difficult that would be to code in the game, but there was a mod that I used to play with a lot, and it required you to drop off passengers on a bus or a train near an industry, and they would go into that industry, and that would be the workforce for that industry, and it would not work until there were actual people there. It wouldn't produce anything if there was no workers in the building. That was pretty cool. That's sort of the way it works in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic as well. People have to be in walking distance, or they have to be transported for an industry in order to get it to work. So that'd be something kind of cool. In Transport Tycoon, your oil tankers would go out to an oil rig and it would collect the crude oil, but you had to fly people out on a helicopter in order to get that oil platform to work. If there was no people there, it wouldn't produce anything, and that was kind of cool. It made helicopters viable because you had to transport people out to an offshore oil platform. So that was kind of neat. I'd like to see something like that. Maybe even, I don't know what industries you could add. Mail is always an industry that is in most games. It's probably the first industry add-on I got for Transport Fever 2's a mod, was the mail. It really works good. In Transport Fever 1, there was a group of devs that made entire post offices and post vehicles. They modded all the vehicles, the buildings, and everything for it. That was really cool. So seeing something like that would be kind of neat. They could add industries. There are lots of industry mods out there that add just tons of stuff to the game, and it makes using certain vehicles viable. Like the car one, there was a one where you could make cars. There was the weapons one where you could make military vehicles and weapons and stuff. That was always really neat, because you do sometimes often get vehicles that are not really viable in game. Speaking of vehicles, would like to see not a ton of new vehicles. When Transport Fever 2 came out and then they added the sort of Russia-Asia vehicles, that was enough for me, because that was cool to sort of see the types of vehicles there and play around with them. There will probably be some newer vehicles here. I don't think they're going to add an entire region's worth of vehicles, but we've got the helicopters and stuff, maybe a few different ships, trucks. If it's just the same assets recycled from Transport Fever 2 with just a couple of new ones, that's fine. I'll happily do a vanilla playthrough with all the vehicles. That'll be great, and then modding will come into it, and then you can add as many vehicles as you want, because there are so many vehicles now for Transport Fever. There's just an unholy amount. So yeah, if there's just a few sort of new vehicles. The helicopters though, I really hope there's helicopters in the game, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. That will be cool. What else was I going to say about vehicles? I was going to say something. Yeah, the breakdowns and stuff. I don't know if we'll get breakdowns. We certainly won't get like the crashes like you used to get in Transport Tycoon, where if one of your trucks broke down on a train line, a train would just barrel through it, or planes or helicopters would drop from the sky. I think that would be an interesting mechanic. Most people will be sitting there thinking, you just want to see the world burn, but that's what happens in real life. It makes it more realistic. It would probably make it obviously less of a sort of family wholesome game, but it's something I'd like to see. Okay, right, what else? So we've done the vehicles, we've done the realism, the difficulty, the optimization, the day-night cycle. So there's obviously the scene here where it transitions from day to night. Other modders have attempted to do sort of day-night cycle by changing the skybox. There is a girl, and I can't remember her name. She's got her own YouTube channel, and I remember trolling through YouTube to see if anyone had developed a day-night cycle mod. And I think she created the mod. I can't remember her name. But she does a couple of Transport Fever 2 videos, and she does her own modding, and I'm not sure she made the actual mod, but it showed it. There were different textures like sunset, dusk. like sort of almost night. There was like a foggy sort of one as well where there was a lot of mist, and it sort of blanked out everything you could see in the distance with the mist, and it was really cool. And I was like, yes, this is good. Stuff like this is good. We need this. And we're looking at some of these sort of images that are going. We're obviously, which looked like the day-night cycle, and it looked like the one with the trains going through the canyon, that there was a sort of mist and fog there. Whether we'll get at in the game, I don't know, but the day-night cycle would be cool. Like I said earlier, it makes the game world feel alive. Same with weather. And it'd be cool, again, in a more realistic setting, if weather had an actual effect on the scheduling of your vehicles and stuff, although I don't think that will be the case. That's maybe a bit too hardcore, but it'd be really nice to see. So yeah, lots of stuff there. The modding will come, and I would imagine it will be glorious like it was in Transport Fever 2. The vanilla game in its own is great, but once you sort of hit the modding scene, it's very difficult to go back. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait. This was a total shock to me. I had no idea. I'd sort of the feeling that they were finished with Transport Fever 2, and we hadn't really heard of anything. A few people knew quite a while ago, but this was a first for me. Seeing the announcement trailer pop up on my YouTube page, to begin with, I was like, oh my god, this is like fan made, but then there's an actual website for it. It was actually uploaded by Urban Games official YouTube channel, so that was kind of cool. I could not believe it. Now we have something to look forward to in 2026. The types of hardware and stuff that we're going to be running in 2026 and what the game's going to be optimized for, we'll have no idea. But I wish the devs the best of luck in this. 2026, I guess it's going to be one of those games that's probably going to suffer from delays and stuff. Most big titles do. But I am really looking forward to this, and I will be keeping a watchful eye out on anything new that sort of comes along. It's going to give me something to search for and troll around on the internet for any information on Transport Fever 3. But yeah, looking forward to this. Can't wait. Hope you guys are too. So that was my breakdown of the trailer. Obviously, in-game footage cinematic, not in-game footage, so we don't know what any of that looks like yet. But it looks awesome. If some of their stuff they're showing here in the cinematics can be implemented in-game, it'll be fantastic. It'll be a win in my book. But that's going to be it for me. Let me know your comments, what you think, what you would like to see when the game releases. And yeah, that's been it for me. I've been Danny Min. This has been the Transport Fever 3 trailer breakdown, and I will catch you later.